In one of my previous videos, someone had left a comment and asked me to describe the rifle that I use in high power competition. So I had a few minutes and thought I'd make that video to describe that rifle. Now, before I get started with the actual rifle, I want to say that this sling on here, even though it's not technically part of the rifle, I consider it to be part of the rifle because it always stays with the rifle and really can't shoot a good score without one. But what I will do is I'll take the sling off so we can just talk about what we have here. And it might be better if we split this up between the upper receiver assembly and the lower receiver assembly. So let's set this aside for right now. And we'll focus on what we've got here. So this is the lower receiver assembly. I'll start with the receiver. The receiver is just a Rock River Arms receiver that I bought about 20 years ago or so. It's the Rock River. It was the Rock River National Match lower receiver assembly, which came with the receiver, an A2 buttstock, of course this pistol grip, and the Rock River National Match trigger. So the only thing that's left out of all that is the receiver itself, as well as the pistol grip. The trigger that's in here now is a Geisley service rifle trigger, a two-stage service rifle trigger. And this trigger is set up to break at 4.5 pounds, or at least, or no less than 4.5 pounds. And it's a two-stage trigger. I couldn't tell you what the bias is between first stage and second stage. All I do know is that it does pick up 4.5 pounds. So that's the trigger. And then moving backwards here, this is the buttstock. And this particular one is a UBR, a Magpul UBR first generation or Gen 1 buttstock. And back when we used to shoot iron sights, we had A2 buttstocks, and that was pretty straightforward. When optics were allowed in the sport, we could have buttstocks that are adjustable for length of pull. Now, as you can see, I've got a couple paint marks on here. What this signifies to me is that when this lower paint mark matches up with this one, this is the setting that I use for length of pull for the standing and sitting stages. And then in this position, this is what I use for the prone stages. And this is adjustable for length of pull. And I guess you could take that off if you wanted to. There was a screw somewhere on here that prevented this thing from coming off, but I took that off to be able to give myself this length of pull position on here. Now, back when we shot iron sights, when we had the A2 buttstocks, those buttstocks had a wedge of lead in them to weigh them down, to balance the rifle better. Going to these types of buttstocks, we can't do that, at least not as easily. So when I first started using this buttstock, I found that the rifle was very, very muzzle heavy because this buttstock was so light. So to alleviate that, there were two things that I did. One was, as you can see inside this door, there is a small lead weight inside here. And so that helps weigh down the buttstock a little bit. And in addition to that, I have this, which is an extension tube weight that is sold by White Oak Armament, and this attaches to the buffer tube, or to the tube on here of the buttstock, and it provides an extra. Oh, I don't know how much it is, but I think it's probably just under a pound. But it provides a little bit extra weight. So this weight combined with the lead weight in here helps to balance the rifle a lot better than what the buttstock on its own does. So that's pretty much it. Low receiver, trigger, buttstock with the weights. Pretty straightforward. So that is the lower receiver. So let's now move on to the upper receiver assembly. Here's my upper receiver assembly, consisting of the upper receiver as well as the sighting system, which nowadays is optical sights. So I'll start with probably the most commonly asked component of the upper receiver assembly, and that's the barrel. In this case, since so many people are interested in what the barrel is, I've made a video about how I choose barrels, but then a lot of people asked what type of barrel I actually had on the rifle. So, to give you the most accurate information, I have my invoice here from White Oak, and according to this particular barrel is a White Oak Precision Bartline service rifle barrel, post band, 1-in-7 twist, 4R rifling. And the part number is 5BSRA7-4R, for those of you who are interested. So that is the barrel that is on there. I couldn't tell you anything else about it. It's stainless steel. That's what I consider most important because it looks cool. Looks even cooler on real rifles like Garands and M1As. But I also like the way it looks on an AR as well. So in addition to the barrel attached to the receiver, but in addition to that, there is a steel tube. You can kind of almost see it through these holes. There is a steel tube, a steel float tube, that attaches to the receiver and goes over but does not touch the barrel itself. So what that means is that the barrel has nothing in contact with it from the receiver forward until you get to the gas block. And then the sling swivel, for example, is connected to the float tube itself, not the barrel. So the barrel has nothing touching it because of the fact that there's a float tube on the inside here. And going over that float tube are the standard handguards. Now I know that a number of people in competition, high power competition, shoot the various quad rails or the rails where you can mount all kinds of stuff on there, even though we don't do that in our sport. But I've stayed with these handguards. I'm just used to them, and they've worked out pretty well for me. In the prone position, my hand is always out to the sling swivel, so it's not like I have to try and grip anything on here. In sitting, my hand is way back here. So I don't know. I don't know if there's any advantage for me with a different type of handguard, but I've been satisfied with this, so that's what I've stuck with. Now the scope rail itself, this is an extended rail, and it's got a 10-minute of angle bias or angle to it. And these rings are Weaver tactical rings. So you can tell they're tactical because they're black. And that's really all that's the only thing that makes them tactical. And then moving up here to the scope, this is the scope that I've shot in competition ever since I went to optical sights. And this is a Leupold FX2 scope with the target dot reticle. It is a fixed 4-power scope, and it has a fixed 300-yard parallax. And like I said, this is the scope that I've used for competition for ever since 2017. The knobs on here, kind of a little bit of background on it. When I first got this scope, it had the knobs that were graduated in minutes of angle. I contacted Leupold and I had them make custom knobs for me that were graduated in clicks. So as you can see on here, these have 60 clicks for each revolution, and they're graduated all the way from 0 up to 59. And I prefer clicks because that's how I think when I adjust my sights. And I would prefer thinking in integers rather than fractions. I just think it's just easier for me to think in integers rather than trying to figure out if my 0 is at 3 3/4 minutes and I have to add 2.5 minutes or something like that. I'd rather just do it in clicks. And I have found that a lot of people that kind of, I don't know, rubs them the wrong way a little bit that I use these. Sometimes they come up to me and they feel that they have to justify why they use minute of angle clicks. So it's up to them. This is the method I'm more comfortable with, and I really like it. So apart from the knobs on here, I also have a lens reducer that just screws into the back of the scope. And all that is just a lens with a hole in it that's tinted. Now, a lot of people will use these lenses because they feel that looking through that hole will put their head in a particular position or a consistent position. And it may do that, I don't know, but that's not why I have this on here. I use the reducer simply because it is a tinted lens, and I wanted a tinted lens. When I first started shooting a scope, I found that when I looked through the back of the scope, especially kind of in mid-afternoon shooting when we're shooting prone, at some ranges there was a lot of light reflected off the target, and that made the image very, very bright for me. And sometimes it made it difficult to truly discern the diameter of the sighting block. So I wanted something to kind of dim that image a little bit. So that's why I use this lens reducer, which is again a tinted lens, and that really cuts down on that glare coming off downrange. So that's it. That's my rifle. Not very complicated, but it's service rifle competition, so it's not supposed to be complicated. Although nowadays it certainly is more complicated than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So hope that answers a lot of the questions people have had. This is what I use in competition every single time I go out. And so far I've been pretty happy with it, with the way it's been performing. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.